It's time for the show about the people and the places of the Carolinas, with the occasional visitors. In addition to hosting the award-winning syndicated TV show Life in the Carolinas, Carl White writes a weekly syndicated column and now hosts this weekly show, the Life in the Carolinas podcast. Now you can hear the story about the stories. And now, here's your host, Carl White.
Martha Bassett. Oh my gosh,
Carl
it's so good. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, you know, Martha, we met 4 or 5 years ago. We were in Elkin, North Carolina at the Reeves Theater.
Yes.
And working on a story for our Carolinas Theater Trail. And you were there. That was your show. That was the first time that I witnessed the Martha Bassett Show.
Yes, we're in season 6 now. I think that was season 2, so we were just starting out.
Yeah. Well, it was great. It was great.
Thank you.
I'm glad. It was very fortuitous for us to meet, because from that point on, we started following, learning about your career, and just being amazed at all the wonderful people you pulled together to put your shows on.
Thank you.
Well, that's a good thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I'm having a ball with it.
Yeah. Well, Martha, there's so many things we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
So many things for us to explore. But before we do that, why don't you just share with us how music became part of your life?
Well, I am from a very small town in West Virginia, Mount Nebo, West Virginia. I lived like a quarter of a mile from the West Virginia State Song Convention, Gospel Song Convention.
Right.
Sang in church choir with my grandma. My uncles were bluegrass musicians.
Okay.
In the area.
All right.
And I just always loved to sing.
Do you remember that first time, you know, as a child? I ask people this question a lot because I'm always curious as to what really was that moment of where it's not just you're singing, but the moment when you realize, oh, this feels good. I really like doing this.
I don't know if there was one moment. I hear from my family that I sang before I talked, which I think a lot of kids do.
Right.
And so I was just a singer from the get-go. But I do remember I lived on a farm, rural area, didn't have a lot of other kids around to play with. And so I just spent a lot of time outside, and I would sing.
Okay.
I would sing while I was playing. I'd sing for the cows. Yeah.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so
they were my
very
first audience.
Captive, right?
Very captive. They will just stand there and stare at you for a long time if you sing for them.
I saw a story years ago about this 3-piece string group, and they would perform for the cows. Huh. And the cows absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting story about how they started to do that. But it seemed like it was good therapy for both them and the cows.
Right. I will say that I didn't really think of myself as a singer. I knew from a pretty early age that I wanted to go into music, but I didn't have a good sense that I was a good singer because being uneducated, I would hear singers on the radio, and their voices were higher than mine. And, you know, I had a pretty low voice as a child, too. And I thought, well, I'm not a good singer because I can't hit those notes.
Right.
Not realizing you can just change the key of a song.
And unfortunately, the cows did not have command of the English language that you could understand, right? So they couldn't give you feedback.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the good side of that is that I developed my harmony singing chops really early because I wanted to sing, so I would just find harmony parts to everything I was singing along to.
So that happened in church, I would imagine.
Church and singing along to my mom's record collection.
Okay. All right. So you were doing the very early versions of what people do on YouTube now.
Yeah, the Mamas and the Papas were formational for me as a child, and we had a John Denver 8-track that lived in the station wagon for about 2 years, and John Denver was great to sing along with.
So what was your favorite John Denver song?
Oh, Well, we had this greatest hits
Okay.
record, and I loved everything on it. I don't know. You can't really beat Annie's song.
Right.
I know that's
No, that's fair
cliche,
enough.
but I love to sing it. I love. He also wrote "Take Me Home, Country Roads,"
Yeah.
which is West Virginia state anthem.
I could hear you singing that.
I have sung it, not a lot, but I have. Let's see. I don't know. I just love John Denver's voice. I just thought he was an amazing
So
talent.
John Denver had an influence on your life.
Yeah.
Time in the pasture with the cows had an influence on your life. Church had an influence on your life,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So singing in church. Mm-hmm. So was that did your parents sing or?
My mom sang a lot around the house. My grandmother was in the alto section in the choir, and I would stand beside her, and she was kind of the biggest voice in the section.
Right.
And
Did that impact your singing style?
yes, in retrospect, it did. Mm-hmm. I will say that when I was in high school choir and realized that I could sing with a classical voice, and it just opened up my range to be able to sing anything. I just went that direction immediately, and I knew that I was going to major in voice in college. But that type of singing would have been considered uppity in my church, so I never sang in my own church.
But your grandmother, she helped plant those seeds, though,
She did.
because that alto voice and that power delivery.
Now that I'm doing mostly non-classical music, I hear my grandmother in my voice a lot, and the older I get.
Yeah.
So that's fun for me.
Oh, that's great. I mean, is there that moment of where you're singing and you're on stage? Let's say you're at your own show, the Martha Bassett Show, and you're doing a little piece, and do you catch yourself sometime hearing Grandma?
Oh yeah, especially on the more country gospel stuff, because she just let it go. She was not a pretty singer; she was a strong singer.
Right. Is that a special moment for you?
Yes. Yeah, it's very emotional.
Yeah, right. Well, I think we're all dramatically imprinted by those early days in our life.
Yeah.
For good or bad, whatever it is, it sticks on us. And when you're able to do good things, that's a pretty special moment in time.
It is.
What would you imagine it would be like if she were at one of your shows sitting in the audience? Or would she be in the audience? Would she be up there with you?
That's a good question. I don't know. I would love that. She died when I was in my 20s. And so I haven't had her around for a really long time. I wonder what she would think of all of this.
Right.
I think she'd like it.
Yeah. Well, maybe she's there, right?
I like to think so. Yes.
Maybe she is looking in. So you went to college, and then you're learning a more classical style of singing. Talk about that for a moment, and what that training experience was like for you, and how did that change your life?
Oh, it was such a joy. I'm one of those musicians that loves to practice. When I was a kid, before I really started singing, I was taking piano lessons, and I'm not a good pianist, but I would just practice for hours at a time because I loved to. And that kind of set me up for understanding theory, so those classes were kind of easy for me in college. But when I started really working with a voice teacher and doing some competing, that was really fun for me too, and scary.
Right.
I don't know. I just loved that it was my job in college to go to the practice room and spend the day. And I relished that, and I miss those days. I don't have that kind of time.
Can you imagine what someone's life as a musician might be like? Say someone's great. People that have been on your show who did not go to music, a formal music training of any type, right? And how there are things you pick up, right? There are things you learn that makes it a little bit better. So can you imagine those people, how it would benefit some people? And yet there are other people that are so profoundly unique that they have their own voice, they have their own style, and it's so dialed in, you can't even remotely imagine how it could be better.
I agree, and I am not of the opinion that everybody needs to be classically trained. As a matter of fact, there is an unlearning process that comes with...
Explain that.
Well, you don't want to sing folk music with a classical voice. You know, I had to find my voice again once I started singing. And my first band was a swing band.
Okay.
And that was, I had a bluegrass sound in my ears. I didn't really grow up doing that so much, but I knew what it felt like, and I knew.
Well, you know, bluegrass music is probably one of the most difficult musics to do and hide from your mistakes, because most bluegrass musicians, we have a lot of them in the Carolinas, they're excellent performers.
Right, that's true.
And if you mess up, then it's obvious. But I think because of that, and because of it being so in your face from a standpoint of, it doesn't matter if there's amplification or not, you can hear the banjo, you can hear the fiddle, you know.
For sure. When it's done right, that's...
Exactly. Watching Rex McGee, you know, who was at a recent show that we were at with you, your show, and it was, you know, I've met Rex years ago, and to see him on stage performing, he's such an excellent performer, and to see his son now performing with a guitar was amazing. I wasn't at all surprised that it was excellent. I would expect that, right? I mean, how could you grow up in that household and not be schooled?
Yes.
Because that's just part of the deal, right? But he's still going to go to school and learn and continue to learn more. So when you see young people who have those type of environments to grow up in, a little bit like yourself, you know, you had a family that enjoyed music and performed, you know, at church, wherever. Yeah. It does make a difference, right?
It does, absolutely. It does. My family was very supportive of me. I mean, they paid for my instrument and band, and they bought me a piano, and they paid for lots of lessons, and so I'm very lucky that way.
So let me ask you this. So your family growing up, was your family a wealthy family?
No, they were not. In a rural area like that, I didn't think of myself as poor. Right. But like the men in my family were all coal miners, and that was not unusual. They were
hard workers.
Hard workers.
And the reason I asked that question is because I've often talked to musicians who have the most soulful voices, and I hear that message about, you know, Mom and Dad, they made sure that I had an instrument. They made sure that I got lessons and just to learn. Right?
Yes. And that wasn't easy for them. They didn't have a lot
that was the whole
money.
thing. You know, it's like, you know, they're not spending the money on building another barn. They're investing in their children. Yeah. And it's I'm not going to say sacrifice. For some it would be. They would sacrifice other things. But a major commitment of support.
Sure. And I'm the oldest, so they had less money for me than, you know, the later kids.
Yeah. Are you glad they did that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They encouraged me in sports. I just joined everything. I loved being involved. Were
they there rooting you on all the way?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to beat that.
It really is. I was loved.
Yeah. They say love conquers all. It certainly helps, doesn't it? Yeah. So you're growing up in this very nurturing family, and you're not just learning from Grandma and Mom, you're actually getting the support of education from other people who know what they're doing. And that fostered, I suppose, your continued education in music. You step into that education environment and learn even more, formally learn. Then you unlearn a little bit, But when you're unlearning the formal, you still have things you learn that's part of, that goes with you. So you're a little bit higher on technique and just being able to read music and doing those type things, right?
Yeah, I'm grateful for my education, especially now. In the Martha Bassett Show, I have to learn new music constantly.
Right.
In lots of situations that I've created for myself, church jobs, I'm just learning music constantly, and I think about how difficult that would be if I couldn't read.
Oh, sure.
Not that everything is written out in notation, but just chord charts. You have to just be able to get it done quickly.
Well, let me ask you this. So you learned that lesson. You learned how to read music, but can you do it by ear also?
Yes, and like with the guitar, I mainly do it by ear. I do read charts, and I don't read notated music for guitar like a classical guitarist would.
Right.
But I mainly do harmonies by ear, and I will say if I'm learning something and the melody, I need to learn it very quickly, it helps me to just write it down in notation, because I can just read that and I don't have to remember and guess at what it sounds like.
No, well, you're with the show, the Martha Bassett Show. I mean, you have all sorts of musicians there.
Yeah, and a lot of my my band members are trained. Sarah is a reader. Russell is a reader. You know, they both studied music in school, and it just helps if I want Sarah to sing something specific. I just write it down and she does it. So that's a real asset.
So you've got yourself surrounded now with a group of smart people, passionate about the craft as well. So let's talk. So now we have a little understanding of why you're the way you are. Because, well, I mean, it's how we grow up, right? So that's the how. It's like, well, why in the world, you know, how can you do all this? Well, it's because of your upbringing, right? And it sounds like yours was great. So it's nice to see and hear you talk about that and share that part of who you are. Now let's kind of go into that conversation about the Martha Bassett Show and how you were able to, or what inspired you to create a show with your own name, because that means a lot. You're on the line, you know, so it's not like the reviews are going to say, well, you know, Tom in that Martha Bassett Show. Now they're going to say the music at the Martha Bassett Show was not good. So your name is going to be there, right?
Yes.
So a couple of things, and you and I chatted about this a bit before, and that is, how did that happen for you? Where did that discipline come from? And in a world and in a community that mostly men are the ones who are producing these type of programs, right? So tell us how that happened.
Well, there actually is a man producing this program. His name is Pat Lawrence. He's my partner.
Pat. Right.
And
did he come up with the name?
Yeah, he came up with the name, and I said, absolutely not.
Oh, okay. I'm glad we talked about this. I just completely assumed that you woke up one morning and said,
I'm going to have a show, the Martha Bassett Show. No, that did not happen.
No. Oh, what were you going to call it?
I didn't even have the idea to have a show. So Debbie Carson and Chris Groner bought the Reeves, and before they even opened, they reached out to me and said, would you think about doing something regular? And they just left it at that. And I was thinking, maybe I'll host an open mic. I was thinking along those lines, and Pat, who is a much larger thinker, said, no, we're going to have a show and we're going to call it the Martha Bassett Show. And as I said, I protested that because that's embarrassing. Who am I to name a show after myself? And he did it. He did it.
So Pat did it.
Pat did it.
Bless his heart.
Bless his heart. I know. And he really puts in the lion's share of the work of the show. We have a whole team, but he really is in charge of a whole lot. He's writing grants right now.
So it really does take a team to pull this off.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we know the truth that you reluctantly came along and said, okay.
I'm still embarrassed every show when he said, when he at the beginning announces what is on the show and the music of Martha Bassett, and I'm like, oh, that's so embarrassing.
You'll eventually get used to it, right? Or you
I'm
think
6 years in. I don't know. Every time I hear it, I cringe a little bit and go,
but you do it. You come out.
Yes, I love the show. I totally love doing it. It's the best thing I ever did.
So you love the Martha Bassett Show?
I do, absolutely.
Right? Well,
I think so.
Had it not been for your producer.
I know.
What?
I trust him. I have learned to trust him. He has outlandish ideas, and they're usually good ideas. Usually,
okay.
But we're good balance.
Okay.
We're good balance that way.
So was there one where you're sitting around brainstorming and Pat says, hey, Martha, let's do this. She's like, look.
I don't know if I can give you a specific example.
But there have been moments.
Yes, there have been moments.
Okay, you don't have to do that. Well, when we were at the show last night, which was great, I wanted Tim to go, and I said, let's just go to the show. Tim's the engineer and editor, and I said, let's just go to the show. And not working, no cameras. I just want you to have that experience. And when I asked him that, and you'll understand this as a professional performer, he looks up and thinking, he says, I don't need to work. No, you're just going to go enjoy yourself. He's like, that might be nice. So it's literally been that long since you've gone to a show and not done something.
I understand. You know? I don't get the opportunity to go hear other people perform as often as I'd like.
Because it is different when you're there and you're backstage and you're coming in, or even if you're playing, you still don't get that sensory experience of what it looks like. I mean, you get to see it afterwards on video, but you don't get to see that live performance.
It's true. And I always go back after, and I'm backstage listening, but you don't hear it as well. The sound isn't as good back there. So sometimes I don't hear all the lyrics and what people are saying to the audience. And it's a joy to go back and watch.
Well, you're the star. I know. Cringeworthy thoughts. Oh my gosh. So now, well, it's there now, you know. It's the Martha Bassett Show. And it's working 6 years in.
Yeah.
So what we experienced at the Reeves Theater in the audience was a 2-hour experience, which was wonderful. You cut that down to about an hour, and then that goes on radio.
Yes.
Right? So talk about that experience for you, and being on radio is one thing, right? You can sit in the studio and you can talk, and that's it. But here you truly are. You truly are the face. You're Martha Bassett. You're the face of the show. And you have to, now you're doing both. You've got a live performance, you've got a tape performance, and you've got a radio performance, which is, all of those have different audiences. Some crossover, but different, right? Did you expect that?
We hoped from the beginning to be on radio. It took 3 years to be picked up, and WFDD was the first to pick us up, our local NPR station out of Wake Forest. And we're growing from there. We really want to be a national radio show.
Yes,
and we have everything we need for that. All we have to do is send it to other stations and we'll pick it up.
So, tell me the future plans for that. What are you doing to make that happen?
It's an ongoing process. Last year, I spent many hours just calling radio stations. One of our team members made me a list of every NPR station in the country, and I didn't call all of them, of course, but I have been looking at the surrounding states, and we're in Tennessee and Virginia now. We have a lot of coverage. We're not all over North Carolina yet. Central to the coast, we don't have any coverage unless they can get it from Roanoke. But
it's a journey.
It's a journey. We have someone who is supposed to be taking up that mantle now.
And working on that process.
Working on that for us. And I don't really know. from the beginning of this project, we've Pat and I and our whole team, we've just been learning as we go.
Sure.
And
I think that's wonderful. I mean, you stepped into an arena that you had never been in before, especially with your own name.
right.
So it's kind of like, well, your show has a little bit of that feel of, your version of the Prairie Home Companion,
Yes. And I love Prairie Home. So
I do too. Martha Home Companion. That's the Martha. It's perfect. It's perfect for that format. Do you visualize, that the future, when you see yourself, on that national platform, or even now, can you imagine the evolution? Is there an evolution of the show?
yes. You mean the content of the show?
Yeah.
There has been an evolution all along, but we've stayed pretty true to our original goals, which were supporting women as much as men in our programming.
Well, talk about that for a moment, because I've noticed that in your I think I've been to 4 of your shows over the course of however long, and I would notice a nice mixture. I've enjoyed each show because they're very different, and I like that. But you and I talked about this topic before scheduling this session. Was one was there are not many women doing what you're doing. So what type of responsibility do you feel weighing on your shoulder of when you and Pat are working on the lineup of where Pat says, well, here, and you look at it and says, okay, we need to add this and we need to add that, which basically is more inclusion of women and people of different ages. I love that when you said that. Okay, so that, but you'd have so much diversity in your show.
Yes.
I was, not to date this piece because it's timeless. I kind of think good stories are timeless, don't you, Martha?
I do.
I mean, it doesn't really matter when you listen to a good story. There's something that resonates with us, right?
Sure.
So last night, I'm sitting in a great seat at the Reeves Theater. The Martha Bassett Show is starting. And I had a newspaper friend that I brought with me because he hadn't been to the Reeves and he hadn't seen the Martha Bassett Show. But he has listened to it on NPR. So because I knew he hadn't been to the Reeves Theater because I'd asked him before. I called him and said, you want to go to the Reeves Theater? He said, I'd love to. And when you going? I said, Thursday. He said, okay, I'll move something. Anyway, so Ken came along and I said, Ken, there's somebody on the program. I have no idea who this person is, but I really want to hear a singer by the name of Mama Molasses. And in my mind, I just imagined it was this bigger than life blues singer or, something like that. That's what was in my mind. And then she came on stage and I was like, wow, that was it. And I said, Ken, I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect her. And he says, I think it looks great. And I can't wait to hear her sing. So she sang.
Big voice, though.
Oh, my God. No,
voice.
That was just it. The big voice came, and I leaned over to Ken, and I said, I like her. I don't know why, but I do. And it became infectious, right? I've had that experience with blues singers and with jazz singers and folk singers, you don't know where they're going sometimes.
Right.
But then you find yourself, I like that.
Yeah.
The spoken word. I thought that was great. You had the fellow from Winston.
Yeah, Spencer Aubrey.
So Spencer was on stage with you. If I understand right, he had been in your band before, set in, but yes. Here he was doing his own performance. Mm-hmm. Have you done much with spoken word before? Yeah,
we've had various poets over the years, and we've had Bill Lepp, storyteller, twice, and that's something we'd like to continue sprinkling in.
Yeah. I definitely think that's a perfect fit for for NPR. But I think it's a great fit for anybody.
Yeah, I do too.
Takes a minute to get accustomed to spoken word, and that the poetry. But I love that dramatic energy that comes with it. You got to think, it's got music, you got, melody, you got something to, you hear the words, but the music can do something to you as well. There, you're naked, right?
Right. Do you know Menton Sparks?
I know, I don't know Menton.
She has been on the
personally.
show, and she's coming up later this season. And
well, she's got quite the reputation.
Oh, she's amazing. She's amazing. And so it's spoken word, but we back her up musically as well.
Okay.
So and we've done that with other poets too, but she's in a special category all of her own.
Years ago, I was traveling somewhere and I went into this coffee shop. So it was, I guess the term at that time, it was a beatnik type of a place, but it was poetry night and tea and coffee and some other herbal things were floating around, I think. It seemed to be a thing of that period, or now a period. It's not an herbal thing, it's medicinal, publicly. But I guess I was just submerged in it that night, and I didn't care for it at first, but then the more I sat, the more I was like, oh, that's pretty darn good. Everybody wasn't great, but there were some that, all you need is a few that are great to see the potential, right? You see that sounds good.
Well, you notice on our show, the stage turns over every 2 or 3 songs. So I feel like it gives everybody a taste of different things. Like you might come because you like this artist that's on the program, but you're being introduced to all these other elements. And even if you're not a fan of whatever genre that is, live music is different from hearing it on the radio or in another format. And I feel like it gives the audience an appreciation.
And don't you think also by having those short sets that if it's not your thing, you don't have to wait long.
Exactly. It'll be over soon.
Don't worry, the misery won't last, or the celebration, either way.
Right.
I mean, it's both ways, Sometimes you're like, oh, could do another one, but they can't because they got it. But they're coming back.
Exactly.
They're going to come back. I love that format.
Yes, and I try and... so last night I had Mama Molasses. I would not have another female country singer on the stage with her, because then you compare them.
Right.
So I want to have 3 distinct artists.
Okay. So you're giving everybody an opportunity to shine.
Right.
And
I do whatever they're not doing.
Okay.
And that's something that I really enjoy about the show too. I get to do different things. And that's always, as a singer-songwriter and just a performer in general, I've always really enjoyed doing a lot of different things, and that made it difficult to book myself because people don't know what they're necessarily getting.
Right.
And now I can just do what I want.
That's right. So you've got, come with the Martha Bassett Show, you're going to have a lot of diversity.
Yes.
And it's diverse in the fact that you've got this mix of people, but you could, other than your band, and even that switches up a bit, right?
Yeah, it does.
Every show, if you were at the last show, don't worry about getting a repeat, because the next show is going to be different.
Completely.
And the next show is going to be different.
Yes.
And it's going to keep going. Right. So you do that monthly or how?
Twice a month.
So twice a month.
Yeah, first and third Thursdays.
Wow. So that's 104 shows a year?
No, we are only February through October.
Okay.
So
wouldn't be twice. That wouldn't be 104
first.
shows.
No,
That'd be
we're
20.
Like 20 shows.
20 shows.
And that's counting. We do a run-out show for the Winston-Salem Arts Council in the parks.
Right.
So I think we have 19 shows this year.
Yeah, that's good. We're at 104 shows. Maybe. That's
Total.
if you're doing.
Total.
That's if you're doing 2 shows a week, not a month.
Right.
My adding was.
That would be a whole new level.
That'd be a whole lot.
We're very happy with twice a month, and really that's all the content we need for radio. So we don't want to grow beyond what we're doing.
Right.
We just want our shows to be more widely distributed.
Right. That's a great idea. So you have a variety of music that you perform, as you said. You write some of your own music?
I do.
Yeah. What's hot on your excitement list now that you're like, this song's great. I'm so glad I did it.
Honestly, what's hot on my list right now is not anything that I'm writing. I'm totally into bossa nova.
Okay.
So I've been working on that since the pandemic, and so
that's your happy place.
That's my happy place.
That's great. Well, that's
and I do that on the shows. Sometimes too.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think you did what'd you do? A John Prine song last night?
I did a John Prine song last night. Yeah. Most of my creative energy right now is going into the shows more than into songwriting. So any songs, I'm not working on anything.
Let's talk about that process. Just to follow through for those who don't have their own version of the Martha Bassett Show. Not many people get to do this, right?
Right.
So you have your partner and who's producing.
And he plays bass in the band.
And he's playing bass as well. And he does the announcements,
yes.
Right? Which is great. So for people who haven't seen a live performance that gets cut for radio, it's a great opportunity when they come to the Martha Bassett Show,
right.
the Reeves Theater,
right.
that they actually get to see all the behind the scenes.
Yes,
right?
it's a live taping.
So we got all that going. And you also do a live stream?
Yes.
Of the show?
Yes, we've got 3 cameras going for the show.
How has that been as far as response from people who don't get to come or who just find you? Has that been beneficial? Yeah,
it has been beneficial. And we've really put for a radio show, we've put a lot of money and time into the camera aspect of it as well. Sure. So we have 3 cameramen. We have good cameras. That's got to matter. For radio.
But people do get to see it. So that's got to be good for your sponsors, because it's the full run. So they get to hear their acknowledgments and all. I love that.
One thing that is happening with that is that Pat is editing down the video to match the radio shows that he's editing.
Okay.
So that happens after the fact. He edits it for radio and releases that, but then he takes the video
and then cuts that as well.
Yeah, and those aren't released to everyone, or at least they haven't been now. We have a program called Friends of the Martha Bassett Show.
That's for the friends.
Yeah, that's for the friends.
So, folks, you can become a friend. What is it, $1,000 a month? What is it?
That's the entry level. $1,000 for the season.
The season.
Yes.
The season. All right. So the friends love that then, right?
Yeah, and we also have 4 private concerts for them a year that is just my band. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so now we've got the evolution of the Martha Bassett Show and your band paralysis and know-how. That helped get that started, right? Yeah. So you've got your band. That's one of the things we didn't talk about before we got to the show, was how long you'd had your band before the Reeves Theater happened. Well, the personnel has changed over the years. Right. My first band was Martha and the Mood Swingers. Mood Swingers. Yeah, and that started back in the mid-'90s. 96 is when we first started. Yeah. I was just a child. Yeah. But what was the mood back then? Was it happy or melancholy? What was it? Oh, no, it was upbeat swing music. Okay. We were a dance band. Okay. We did the whole dance circuit. It was super fun. So Martha's mood was high energy. Oh, yeah, it was very high energy. Okay. And That band really worked a lot. After 9/11, everything just kind of fell off, and the mood got more somber. And I loved doing jazz, and I had been in an old time band at that time too, and I was playing upright bass, and I was backing up some singer-songwriters like Bruce Pioff.
Oh wow!
And so really, that's where I got my first touring experience.
Well, that had
Bruce.
to be, but that's a rich experience, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like you step back into an education mode. Mm-hmm. You know, for when you're touring with someone like that, you're learning all the time. You're performing, but also you're absorbing that energy of what's working and what's not, right?
Oh yeah, I loved that. Just singing back up and playing bass, that was super fun.
Oh, great.
So then I started an Americana band with some recent grads of School of the Arts, and being young recent grads of School of the Arts, they all scattered.
Right, of course.
And so I've brought in a lot of local people, but for the past decade, I've had pretty much the core of what I've got now. I tried to have half my band be women. And two of them were members of the Dan River Girls, a young sister trio from Winston-Salem, and they graduated and went away to college. So now it's just Sarah Howell Miller and me are the only women in the band. Russell Kelly on guitar. Deshaun Hickman is kind of a new addition. He's been with us a couple years now. He plays the pedal steel. Rex McGee, I'm always honored to have Rex in the band, and he usually plays fiddle with us, but as you know, he can play the banjo even better.
It's incredible.
Pat Lawrence on the upright bass.
Right.
Sarah plays keys and cajon, any kind of rhythm.
All right, so for the modest Martha Bassett, who's on stage, and you have this musical diversity around you, right? And when things like that happen, those moments that are so magical and the audience is up, I mean, they're just so into it. Describe for us what that's like for you in those moments.
Oh, the feeling of community that I've gotten from this show, and I really feel that intensely when great musical moments are happening. I mean, this whole thing is so much bigger than me. It really is the intentional forming of an extended family of musicians. I've met so many people through this show. I mean, the first season I was inviting my friends because that's who I knew. Right. And it's just been an ever increasing beautiful family, and we really try as artists to show the best hospitality that we can to the artists that come in, because we know what it's like to go someplace and not have a comfortable place to hang out or good food to eat, or I don't know, we just try and keep everybody really comfortable. And
what does that mean? When you're talking about traveling musicians and people are on stage with you, what does that mean? What is the Martha Bassett Show hospitality package?
We provide a merch person to sell their merch, and we don't charge them for it. They get all the money. Everybody on our team is a nice person. Right. And we treat them like they're our friends, and they become our friends.
That's nice.
Did
you ever have some that weren't? Some of the mean ones? Did you ever have a mean one sneak in and you're like, Pat, take care of that?
Not really, but I will say that the people who are less open-hearted, they don't fit in and they don't last very long.
They gravitate away.
Right. I've never fired anybody.
Right. When people aren't happy, they do not want to be around happy people all the time.
Yeah, kind of.
It's like, it's too much.
Imagine also if you are a person in the band who is maybe a perfectionist, and a show like ours, we have one day. We just practice that day. The artists come in during the afternoon and we practice. And so it's not about perfection. It's about trying to put this together as quickly as we can, as well as we can, and you just don't know how it's going to turn out. Sometimes it's better, but it's always different. So you can't come in with a perfectionistic attitude. And
it's like a jazz musician who wants everything to be on sheet music.
Right, right.
And there you've got...
Not going to happen.
No. I mean, I think by its very definition, it's not that, right?
Right. And you have to... My band backs up people that maybe they are not familiar with that genre or not proficient in that genre. So that might be uncomfortable.
Right.
So all of my people are open-hearted and open-minded about what is going to be required of them, and myself included. I've stepped in and done percussion. I'm not a percussionist, and
but you were for the moment.
I was for the moment, and you do what is required to make the best music you can.
Okay, all right. So that's the Martha mantra then.
The show does go on.
Yeah, that's right. So let's make it as good as we possibly can.
That used to be really stressful to me in the beginning because I was just worried that I wasn't going to be able to. I don't know. I don't worry anymore. Yeah. I know that something good is going to happen.
Have you had a few flubs that you're like?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's a 2-hour show and it's going to be edited down to an hour. So not everything that happens on the stage is going to go on the radio, and it's okay.
Of course.
So you just know, we all make mistakes, and I make a mistake in every show. Hit a wrong chord, my voice cracks, something always happens.
Well,
and it's okay.
That's the human side of Martha.
It's very human.
So that's
not perfect.
No. Let's talk about your journey and where you are now, 6 years, and then aptly so, your show, the Martha Bassett Show, is at the Reeves Theater. So the Reeves Theater, of course, was an old movie theater. When I first saw the Reeves Theater years ago, there was a hole in the roof. You could see the sky.
Raccoons living in it.
Right. I didn't see those, but I did see the sky. So wouldn't be far-fetched for, all sorts of critters to be in there. But for you, having a life of music before, very diverse, and now you're in a venue that had a life before, has been saved, preserved for the future. And not only is it a place that's a house that has your show every other week, but it's probably one of the most active little theaters in North Carolina.
Oh, yes.
Of its size, to have 2 or 3 shows a week, that's incredible. So talk about that being your home and why that's special to you. That entire scenario, why is that important for you to be there?
That's a good question, and I've had to answer that question quite a bit because I live in Winston-Salem, and people were like, well, why are you doing this in Elkin? And it is because the Reeves Theater is so special. There's not a week that goes by that someone doesn't come up to me and say, oh, the Reeves Theater, I haven't been there yet. I hear it's open again. That's where my grandparents met, or that's where I had my first date, or, in its previous life, it was such a special part of the community. It was the only movie theater for miles around, and it was in the center of town. So when it fell into disrepair, it just felt like the heart of Elkin. I think it was sucked out of it.
Right.
And for years, different groups of people had been trying to bring it back.
Right.
And it's an expensive thing to do.
Of course.
It's a big building. So when Debbie and Chris and Eric DeLager bought the building and started renovating it, so many of the people who worked on the crew, the construction crew, were local musicians. And that makes it special too.
Sure.
I feel very lucky that I was invited into this. I'm not from Elkin. I don't have history with Elkin. And that community has just welcomed us in like we're part of their family. And they've helped us in so many ways. I can't imagine. So we're not in a a business situation like we're renting a space.
Right.
We are partners with the Reeves, and their staff takes care of us, and we have integrated some of their people into our staff. So it's really been very free flowing in that way. I can't imagine that if I had just gone out looking to rent a space to have this show, that it would be the same. Not to mention how beautiful and good sounding the space is. They really lovingly put a lot of time into the acoustics, and it is stunningly beautiful. It's a really unique place. Eric DeLager is an artist with concrete and the roundness of all the surfaces.
Let me ask you this. I was talking to my friend, the newspaper guy, Ken Welburn, who was there as I shared with you, and I said to him at the break, I said, I think this model, I think the restoration, the preservation of old theaters, I think if there was public money used for anything, because I've been to the Reeves enough to see how many people community-wise come together.
Yes.
And the power that provides in bringing people together.
I literally know people who, like 3 or 4 different couples, and that's just who I know, who have moved to Elkin because of the Reeves Theater.
The culture that it supports.
Yes.
That's pretty darn impressive,
yes,
isn't it?
It is. It is so much the heart of the city, of the region, really.
Right. Which is a special thing. But I think theater in general also has a tendency to do that, bringing people together where they can laugh and cry together. And, it's just for a moment in time. And but if they do that over and over together, right? Because you see a lot of the same people, especially season ticket holders or what have you.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful way
Think about the Elkin Big Band. They perform there. They pack it. They sell the place out. So does the Reeves House Band.
So the first time I heard the house, not the house band, but the big band. So my schedule just kind of worked out. I got the email. And I'm going to go. I didn't even look at the topic. So I go by myself. And so it's love night.
Oh, the Valentine show.
I wasn't putting anything together. I was just like, I want to go hear them. And so I don't know how many ones they were there, but I think this was a +1 night for just about. So everybody was. But I sat there and I listened to this performance, and I'm like, that's impressive.
Yeah, they're very good.
I mean, the room was full of sound, and the performances were amazing. And with all the musical professionals who are in it, for teachers and instructors.
Yeah, it's a volunteer group, and they sound amazing.
And there weren't that many young people on stage, which is what I love, because
there are more now.
Yeah. No, I saw a few, but it's just that idea that the power of music and entertainment.
Yeah.
It can keep you going for a long time.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you think about that? Does Martha Bassett stand on the stage with that big moon behind you that says the Martha Bassett Show, of which you're so proud of, and not modest at all?
I am proud of it.
Yeah.
I really am proud of it.
Yeah, I believe you. So Martha, all these great things are happening, right? Let's talk about the future.
I want the Martha Bassett Show to be what I do with the rest of my career, and I hope to have a long career.
Yeah. That's the thing, right?
Yeah. I love the fact that music is something that you can do for your whole life, and I want to try and keep my voice healthy forever.
Right.
Voices change as we get older, and I want to keep mine going.
Yeah. Well, yours will just get, richer.
Right.
Right?
More mellow and maybe lower.
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows?
That's the beauty of a long time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So we started talking about a little girl that learned how to sing at church or around family and with the cows, and it evolved over this amazing career. It's propose that the Martha Bassett Show is created. You don't want to do that because you're too modest. And you're like, no. But you do it anyway. Now you're celebrating 6 years. You're looking into the future and wanting to do this a long time. Is it possible that the Martha Bassett Show has become even larger in purpose than Martha Bassett herself?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This show could go on without me. I think my biggest contribution outside of music making is my booking. I really enjoy that part of it. I feel like that's my most important job with this show, and just bringing together. I guess I'm curating is what I'm doing, and
sure.
I feel like that in itself is a really fun, creative experience for me.
Right.
Just putting those people together.
So curation, that's a really good thought, because you are putting together a show.
Yeah.
Right? For 2 weeks from now, and then 2 weeks from that, and 2 weeks from that. So you've got to schedule all these things out. So you are curating this experience, but is there a piece of Martha Bassett that's curating her own future human experience as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I didn't fully appreciate it when we started. I had nervous thoughts that I'm grounding myself, so I'm not going to be able to tour.
Right.
And after a while, it was like, oh, I don't have to tour.
Everybody's coming to you,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Right.
And when you're out touring, it's so isolating in a way, because you go and do your thing and you play your songs every night. And now I'm doing so many different things that that when I do have my own shows, I have to like relearn my own music, which is fine. I don't get tired of doing the same thing over and over again, like I used to. I used to kind of burn out on my music.
Right. But now you don't have a chance to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So,
So
I feel like it. I don't know. It is this whole endeavor has just the fact that so many people are involved in the creation of it, and that we've kept our crew really lean and mean, and and we all know and love and trust each other with our jobs. So, one of our broadcast engineer was sick this week, and our monitor guy stepped in and took care of the broadcast mix. When our lead camera person went home to visit parents out of the country, our second camera person went into the lead role. And so we've been doing all this cross-training, and when we have a larger group of musicians that we can draw on for the house band. I don't usually have a drummer there. Sarah takes care of percussion, but sometimes she can't be there, and I bring in a drummer. Right. And so we just have all these different people that filter through and really bring a lot of specialness.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. So, wow. So what a journey. What a journey from where we talked about, from that, where you were, where...
I love it. I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't go back at all. I feel like I'm in such a rich position now to just be able to work with new artists that I am discovering and other people are discovering, and heroes and people who have been out there doing it that there are so many people, so many great artists out there that I didn't even know before.
That's part of the richness of this region as well.
Yeah.
The Carolinas, we have an abundance of extremely talented people. I think you have that nationwide. However, I think this region cultivates that.
I learned that during the pandemic because nobody was touring, and we kept our show going through the live stream. Right. But without an audience. So I couldn't bring in any national or any touring artists.
Right.
But I learned that there were so many people in North Carolina
You were set.
that I didn't even know that were national level.
It's amazing at how many session musicians we have and that are, you know, you name it. You name whatever star you want to name, you know, whatever celebrity you want to name. If they do stuff in Nashville or wherever,
Yeah.
there's a pretty good chance that somebody from the Carolinas is playing a fiddle or a dobro or a guitar or a
Yes.
bass. They're there. So
Absolutely.
it's not an odd thing to see. Wow. So the future looks bright for the Martha Bassett Show. It sounds like that you've settled in to those moments of contentment of being the face of the show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm having a lot of fun. And it's, in a way, I'm performing a lot less with my own band outside of the show because so much time and work goes into the show. But I don't know, we all have other projects too.
Does the is the band happy about that?
Yeah, I think so. It's a good regular gig that gives them lots of opportunities to. I know that there have been several artists who have come on the show, liked working with a member of my band and hired them to play on their record or hired them to tour with them. Or
Sure.
so that.
Well, it's good to be that conduit, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
To help
absolutely.
make all that happen.
Yeah, I like all the connections that form from the show, and I've gotten to work with a lot of artists too, singing backup or playing guitar for other people who will come through through the town or through the region and schedule shows, and they'll hire my band to back them up. So
Wow.
that's been fun.
Wow. So there's a little bit of Martha Bassett brand marketing going on.
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
That's a good thing, right?
it is. It's fun.
People like to do things with people who have an audience, and you certainly have got that now. So that's a good thing.
We're honored.
Yeah. Well, Martha, it inevitably comes to this moment of our visits that with a great musician and somebody that we feel has a heart and a soul when they perform, that we ask them if there's something they'd like to share with all of our viewers and listeners.
Sure.
Yeah.
You mean music?
Yeah, music.
Okay.
Yeah, music. We could bring out the dancing floor if you need to dance, but music would be convenient.
I'm not ashamed to dance, but nobody's ever told me I'm good at it.
Oh,
So
well.
that won't be happening. Let's see. Let me tune this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to play you a West Virginia song.
That's nice.
This is, well, I guess it's a North Carolina song because I wrote it here, but
Right. But it's about your time in West Virginia?
yeah, it's a murder ballad.
Of course. That'll elevate our spirits. Let's.
Yep. It's called Kippy Dooley, and it's a true story from my hometown with my artistic embellishments. And I borrowed some North Carolina lyrics from Tom Dooley, the North Carolina folk song. And
with the Kingston Trio. Yeah.
in the hills where the new river cuts like a knife, where farmers and miners make home, lived a poor man so restless he could bet his young life on 2 wheels and bright shining chrome. Herbie's back from California with a cool, evil gaze, all leather tattoos and rock and roll. Oh, to be like his cousin with his big city ways, Kippy Dooley never feared for his soul. You You can hang down your head with your long dark hair. You can hang down your head and cry. You can hang down your head, 'cause the world just ain't fair. Poor boy, you're bound to die. Herbie thought he'd escaped. To his home he departed with a bag of cold cash and cocaine. Well, a man can run from the trouble that he started, but the devil will follow all the same. And the wrong man was waiting down the road unpaid, and the birds cried out loud as he fell. He was thinking about Jesus, but before he was saved, he was gunned down by the angels of hell. You can hang down your head with your long dark hair. You can hang down your head and cry. You can hang down your head, 'cause the world just ain't fair. Poor boy, you're bound to die. Oh, poor boy, you're bound to die.
Wow. Martha Bassett. Playing one of our happier songs here in the Carolinas.
I got a happier one if you want it.
I think we might. I mean, I liked
Okay.
that. I mean, I've done lots of stories on Tom Dooley, so that's why I knew the Kingston Trio. I know all the origins of it. So that's great, though. That's great. That was. I think we could blend the show where we have murder and mayhem as well as. Well, see, the thing that Tom Dooley did not have in his story was cocaine.
True. And I'm not sure that it was cocaine. I know it was drugs of some sort. And it wasn't the Hells Angels. It was the Avengers.
Okay.
But motorcycle gangs did not hang out in Mount Nebo, West Virginia.
Oh, sure.
They came from California, and
they were there for purpose.
Yeah. So it was some sort of drug deal gone wrong, and
something went bad.
Kippy got mixed up in it, and he was just
it was over.
Sweet hippie boy that
fell under the influence of unsavory characters.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it happens.
It did happen.
Those doolies.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
he
right.
wasn't a Dooley though.
Yeah.
He was a Dooley.
Kippy Dooley.
Oh,
Yeah.
He was a Dooley then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not. I don't know that there's any relation to the North Carolina Dooleys, but
yeah. Well, it was Doula.
Right, it was Doula.
It was Doula.
These were Dooley. They were my neighbors.
Oh, so you knew them?
Yeah.
Oh, so you knew Kippy?
Yeah.
So this is a real life story.
Yeah. He lived right down the road, and I was a kid,
right?
So I hung out with the younger kids in that family,
right? So Kippy Dooley, the subject of your song, was someone that you actually knew.
Yes.
So how old were you when all that went down?
I think it was like 1980, so I would have been 14.
So you were 14, so this was a gruesome thing to happen, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I saw the motorcycles go down our one-lane road, and it was very loud. And
what happened? How did that impact the community?
It's all anybody talked about. So part of my lyrics, the last line, he was thinking about Jesus. All the men, we were all Baptists, and all the men were talking about whether Kippy had been saved or not.
Right.
And
better get that done before it's too late.
Right. It was really a big part of the conversation.
Right.
And I remember everybody loved Kippy. He was like a Vietnam vet, and just a sweet sweet person.
Sure.
I was too young to really know him because he was an adult.
Of course.
But he was well loved, and people like to think that he had, that he had faith.
Right.
And,
right. We all want to feel the best, right?
Right. And so I felt like my lyric was much sadder.
Yeah. No, with a story behind it, of
but
course.
I don't have any way to know,
Yeah. So when did you write that song?
That was the first song I ever wrote, and that was, I don't know, maybe 15, 16, 17 years ago, something like that.
Okay. All right.
Maybe a little longer, but...
Right. So the very first song that you penned and sang was a song with heavy emotion attached to it.
Yeah. I remembered the story, my whole life, and I kept talking to my songwriter friends, especially like Bruce Piaf, because he writes true to life stories. That's part of what he does as a folk singer. And I kept telling people the story, and somebody needs to write the song. Oh, I'm not a songwriter. And they were like, you need to write that song. And
you did.
So I finally did.
Right.
And I was like, okay. I've never been a prolific songwriter, but every now and then I just am inspired to write something. But that's the only one like that.
Do you remember the first time you performed that publicly? Yes,
it was on Summer on Trade, downtown Winston.
What was that? What was the response?
People liked it. It was, that's a really, I don't know if you're familiar with that concert series. It's,
right.
I think it's still going on, but it's a different thing. But they used to block off the streets and everybody came. It was huge audiences, and I loved playing that.
And people liked that song.
Yeah. I still have people ask for it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm always surprised because it's just a little simple 3-chord
Yeah,
song.
but it's definitely a story, and it's a real story.
It's a real story, and I don't know, it got me started into songwriting.
We never forget our first things like that, do we?
Right.
They're really important. Well, that was a wonderful walk down memory lane on a heavier side, but you've got some happy music, right?
I do.
What's your happiest, most enjoyable thing to perform?
So I have a couple of swingy things because I did a lot of swing band music, and so that influenced me a lot. I have one called Shake and one called Wicked Witch, and
is it Shake Wicked Witch or that's two?
No, there's two different songs.
Okay.
So.
Right. I'd be afraid to shake a wicked witch. Got all sorts of problems.
All kinds of problems. I'll sing Shake for you. And you'll just have to imagine the rest of the band because, swing tunes, you need lots of rhythm. But here it goes. Started out, baby, I was shaking my head, rolling my eyes at the things you said. Put your hand on my back and your finger on my lip. Before I know it, I'm shaking my hip, baby, shake. Oh, my baby, now shake. Now I can't hold still when you keep me up late with your hugging and your kissing. Now, baby, you're making me shake. Long time ago, there was Adam and Eve, lived in a garden with a life of ease, till Eve found out that the devil was a snake. 'Cause when she bit the apple, she started to shake, baby, shake. Oh, my baby, now shake. Give me that apple, take a great big taste. I'm a holy roller when you're making me shake, baby, shake. Well, I'm not afraid of tigers and bears, spiders and mice don't make me scared. Now it ain't Halloween, but for pity's sake, I'm starting to tremble now, baby, you're making me shake. Oh, my baby, now shake. Come on, honey, every step you take is a little closer now, baby, you're making me shake. Can't remember the last verse.
Only question I have, was that inspired by a real encounter?
No.
No?
It was not.
Was it a hopeful new encounter?
I don't know where that song came from. It was just something fun I started writing.
No, it's just full of fun. No, I hear that. That's great. No.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty about being creative and knowing how to perform. You just get to play. You get to do whatever you want to do, and especially when you're not worried about anything. It's better that way, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I remember when I first started following John Prime years and years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd listen to the music, that's good. And then I listened to the words, and I was like, that's pretty heavy.
Quite the poet.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is like that spoken word, but he would put the music track behind it.
Yeah.
And it just really worked. That was a beautiful
conversational voice. I am drawn, even though I'm not really that kind of singer, I'm drawn to those conversational type speakers.
Yeah, those engaging moments. I think it touches our brain, our emotions, our intellect, or lack of whatever.
Right.
Whatever.
It touches our hearts.
Yeah, that's right. Martha Stewart, I've had a wonderful time being with you.
You said Martha Stewart.
Oh.
Sometimes I get Angela Bassett.
Stewart. Well, I'm recuperating from a post-traumatic brain. So, of which I'm.
I like to say she and I both did time in West Virginia.
Okay. You marked that, of course, Tim, right? Let's do that again.
I want to keep it.
Today on Life in the Carolinas, Martha Stewart.
It's funny.
Yeah.
That's great.
Martha, it's great spending time with you. I enjoy everyone I talk to. I really do. But Martha, you elevate it to a level of celebration and joy.
Thank you.
With your story. We love following stories in the Carolinas, people who make the Carolinas home, all the way from West Virginia, come to the Carolinas, and you've become part of the culture of influence.
Thank
you have people who are coming to hear your shows. You sing your songs. You write music. You're doing things to help everybody, and we love that.
I love North Carolina. It's been my home for many years now, and I feel like a North Carolina artist.
Yeah. Well, Martha Bassett, it was certainly good having you here. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed our visit with Martha and hearing her story, which is not a small one. It's not a short story. It's a long one, and it's still going. Thanks, Martha.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Life in the Carolinas podcast. If you enjoyed your time with us, please visit the show's website at lifeinthecarolinas.com. Join our mailing list, and we'll keep you updated every week on what we have coming up and other interesting things around the Carolinas. We value you as a podcast subscriber. We'll see you next week. And remember what Carl says, it's never a bad time for a good story.